You're listening to Season 4 of Dakota Spotlight, Chasing Billy, A Pursuit for Justice, an ongoing investigation into the 1978 homicide of William Wolfe Jr. My name is James Woolner. Coming up in this episode.
I am 90% sure of who would be responsible for this crime.
He asked him, I guess he said, can I store some stuff in your garage? Well, my dad didn't realize what he was talking about.
And it was a dumpy, seedy place, and I always thought it was kind of odd that he would meet him there.
My Uncle Frank was, how can I put this?
Because this fellow had a group of, what would you call, followers. Following his lead, he had become almost a sociopath or something.
I can't put anything out of the question, I guess.
Violation of probation on charges of assault with a sharp weapon or intent to kill.
If I could sit down and write a letter to Billy Wolfe, or a series of letters, I guess it would go something like this. Dear Billy, my name is James, and you don't know me. You never knew me. When you were killed in August of '78, I was 13 years old. I'd like to tell you that I produce a true crime podcast, and I've been snooping into your life and your death, but you don't know what a podcast is, what that even means. You died long before podcasts were invented, before everyone got tangled up in the World Wide Web. I'm starting to believe that you got tangled up in something too, something different, something bad. Anyway, I've been trying to tell a story, your story. I've been trying to figure out who cut your throat, then cut you up, and discarded you like trash in the Red River outside of Fargo. Whoever that person is or was, whoever those people are or were, they have never received any punishment for taking your life, at least not any legal punishment. I suppose we might hope that whoever did kill you, they might have suffered in some way, a haunting, guilty conscience perhaps, or maybe they lived in constant fear, their hearts leaping out of their chest every time the doorbell rang, waiting for that day when a homicide detective would rap his knuckles on their front door. I wish I could tell you that it's been easy stalking you and getting to know you, but it seems that you're a bit of a mystery. I'm tempted to say that you must have had secrets, and that's why I'm having a hard time learning about you, but the simple truth, Billy, might be that people just can't remember that much about you anymore. So, Billy, while I'm happy to tell you that you are not forgotten, I'm also sorry to say that you are not very well remembered either, it seems. At least I seem to have failed in finding anyone willing to give us a true glimpse of who you really were, someone close to you who knew you. A few people have been willing to speak to me about you, and while they have done their very best, their memories are fading quickly. All I really know is that you were not a bad kid or a mean kid. I've been told you were shy, you had a big laugh, you were tall. After high school, you moved to an apartment in Fargo, or was it a boarding house? I'm still not quite sure. Sometimes I get discouraged, and I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, like I'm just stumbling along somehow, all alone. I'm chasing your elusive shadow down the dark streets of Fargo. It feels like you're always just out of reach. You're jumping fences and ducking into alleyways, leaving me alone and lost on the sidewalk. Me, feeling like I don't know what to do. It's like sitting down at this untuned piano in my living room and pretending like I know how to play, as if I have any idea how these black and white keys are really supposed to be used. All I know is that if you push the right keys in the right order and right combination, something is supposed to happen. Something that makes sense to the ear or the brain or the heart, but I've never been taught or told how to do it. But just like chasing you, Billy, and looking for your killer, at some point you just have to reach out and try something. Just hit 1 or 2 keys and see how it sounds. If it sounds bad, try something else. If it sounds good, keep exploring. And maybe that's what it'll take to figure you out and solve your murder. Trial and error, like hitting keys on a piano until we find a clue or a tune that sounds like it might be something. That's what I keep telling myself anyway, that sooner or later something, some combination of new clues and keys will make sense and unlock your riddle. Dear Billy, I suppose I should tell you that your father was arrested for your murder, briefly anyway, but they dropped all the charges. They said the investigation had turned up information that did not point to him. Your siblings are still alive. I was hoping to speak with them to learn more about you as a kid. I figured every kid and his siblings have stories. Scraped knees and Christmas presents, a first bicycle, a last baby tooth, quarrels, laughs, and tears. But, Billy, as you might understand, as we all understand, it's difficult for your siblings to talk about all of this. Billy, do you remember that song? Of course you do. Moonlight Feels Right. I've been playing it in my story about you. The lyrics don't really fit a song about a homicide. I mean, come on. The wind blew some luck in my direction. But the song brings us back to a time when you were still alive. Like the rainy morning of August 15th, 1978, when you walked to a payphone to call your mom. Do you remember that? It was the last time your mother ever spoke with you. And I don't know if your mom was watching TV that mid-morning, but if she was, maybe she was watching WDAY Channel 6. On that channel, at 9 a.m., a game show named Card Sharks was on the air, and believe it or not, I found the actual show footage from that very morning, from August 15th, 1978, when your mother maybe was, maybe wasn't, sitting on the couch watching TV, unaware that when the phone rang, it would be the very last time she would hear your voice.
We asked 100 people, which would be harder for you to give up for a week, the telephone or the television? How many said it would be harder to give up television?
Television? Oh, I think a lot of people would rather give up the telephone than television. Television's more entertaining for most people. I'd say...
During the rest of this episode, I want to tell you about 2 leads I've looked into from our tip line. Each of these 2 callers supplied me with a different name, someone they felt was potentially responsible for Billy's death. I know that one of these names is known to law enforcement. The other one may not be known to them. I don't know, of course. I don't have access to Billy's file. For all I know, this will be the first time law enforcement have heard about this guy. And by the way, both of the men we're going to be looking at are now deceased. So, let's get started looking into both of these tips, one at a time. The first person I spoke with asked me not to use his name, so we'll call him Mike. Here's Mike.
I will be 73 in just a couple of weeks. My tip is I am 90% sure of who would be responsible for this crime, having been not an associate, but a part of the same age group of people somewhat involved in teenage drug trade at the time. there really aren't that many people in the Fargo area in those days capable of committing a crime like that. Just couldn't think of anyone else in this whole area that would do that to a person of your age and cut him in half and bag him and put him in the river. This person's name was Bruce.
For now, I'm not going to share with you the full name of the person Mike thinks may have killed Billy. We'll just refer to him by his first name, Bruce. This individual, Bruce, is known to law enforcement.
Since I got in touch with you, I spoke to a few people probably closer involved than me, but not involved with the crime, but with knowledge of the alleged perpetrators. I see the investigators determined that there were more than one person involved, and that, of course, fits very well with my theory here and everyone else that I've spoken to. Because this fellow had a group of, what would you call, followers that they would commit crimes together, and they were a violent and nasty bunch. I know the authorities are aware of this guy. I was close to him way back when he would have been in 9th grade, about 13 years old, when I first met him. He was from the north side and I was from the south, but somehow we got in touch, and I bought 2 guns from him. There was a large burglary overnight at the Shields Hardware, which wasn't that far from me, and there were like 50 guns stolen, and I wound up buying 2 of them. I also spent a long time on the phone with the guy that grew up right a couple doors from, walked to school with him every day. And even in the years that he became this quote-unquote crime boss with his crew of boys, he was still kind to this other fellow and to me, because we had known him in prior days before he escalated into quite such a really terrible person.
I asked Mike to explain what he meant. Why was Bruce a terrible person? One story Mike told me was this. Mike once went to a big party in Fargo at the home of a prominent family. Apparently, the parents were out of town and their teenage daughter threw a big bash.
They had a big, beautiful home down close to where the dike is now. On, 8th or 9th Avenue South, down close to the Red River. Beautiful home. And the daughter, who I wasn't familiar with, just the word got around, there's a big party. So we were all there having fun and socializing and drinking and probably smoking some of that marijuana.
As Mike says, word got around, and somehow it got around to this guy Bruce and his gang, or whatever it was.
And suddenly the door burst open, basically. Here was Bruce with about 4 or 5 of his followers, I guess you'd say. That kind of broke up the party, began beating people, and roughly chased everyone away. But they were just beating people indiscriminately in a very violent manner. I don't recall how many beatings or exactly, how many or injuries or anything. But it was a definite violent takeover of things. They were just mean, that's all. Following his lead, he had become almost a sociopath or something.
Mike recalled that Bruce and his gang, aside from beating people, took everyone's alcohol. I suggested to Mike that this sounded almost like a local, perhaps low-level form of a mafia.
I think we called them that on occasion, the Mafia.
Mike believes that Bruce could be responsible for Billy's death. In fact, he believes Bruce or the people associated with him were responsible for at least 2 other murders, both of which were made to look like accidents.
There was a good friend of mine that was killed in a car accident in the Buffalo River returning to Fargo after a weekend in Detroit Lakes. And there was one even better known, that they had marched into one of the gravel pits, which are very deep and full of water. right about that same time, and they drowned him. And of course, nothing could be proved because it was a drowning, and there's no evidence.
So why does Mike think these people, possibly including Billy Wolf, were killed?
I don't know much, but I think the people that he killed were probably accused or thought to be snitching.
And speaking of snitching, or being a police informant, I want to share with you something that Billy's father told the press 1 month after Billy's murder. The Forum of Fargo Moorhead interviewed Billy's parents in late September of 1978. At one point in the interview, Billy's father offers some information without being directly asked about it. The reporter was asking about Billy's potential drug use, which, by all accounts, was fairly minimal and low level. I mean, the guy smoked pot sometimes and occasionally sold small amounts of it. So in this interview with the Forum, Billy's father speaks up and says something like,
"And all these rumors about Billy being some kind of informant, that's a bunch of BS."
So at the very least, we know that someone was speculating that Billy might have been a snitch or an informant. And really, that's all we need to know, because being accused of being a snitch or an informant was surely just as dangerous as actually being one. Could this be what happened to Billy? Was he an informant, or was he believed to be one and then killed by this man Bruce and his crew or mafia or whatever they were? Had law enforcement ever looked into Bruce for Billy's murder? I decided I'd look into Bruce a bit, and this is what I found. It's a Monday night in August of 1971, 7 years before Billy's murder. Our man Bruce is 20 years old. In the town of Willard, Utah, a full 16-hour drive from Fargo, a woman calls the police and tells them she witnessed something suspicious, screaming and fighting in a car. Police arrive and arrest Bruce and 2 18-year-old men on drug charges. In the car, they find marijuana and other drugs. They also find 2 teenage girls, aged 16 and 17. Both girls are extremely high and possibly overdosing, and they're taken to the hospital. Bruce and his buddies are taken to the county jail. I'm sure a lot of things happened in Bruce's life between 1971 and 1978, but there was one thing I found that's quite interesting. In August of 1976, almost exactly 2 years before Billy's murder, a 16-year-old girl was raped and murdered in her home in West Fargo. Her name was Polly Johnson. 6 months later, another horrific murder took place in West Fargo. Dixie Olson, a mother of 3, was killed in her bed. Billy was killed the next year. 3 homicides in this little town of West Fargo during a short time. While Billy's murder is yet to be solved, we do know who killed 16-year-old Polly Johnson and Dixie Olson. Dixie Olson's husband, Gary Olson, killed them both. He was first convicted of his wife's murder, and then, while serving his sentence at the North Dakota State Pen, he was charged and then tried for the murder of 16-year-old Polly Johnson. And our man Bruce was associated with Gary Olson. Basically, he tried to help him during his second trial, and here's how. While Gary Olson was in the North Dakota State Pen for the murder of his wife, our man Bruce was also there, in prison. We know this because Bruce testified in Gary's second trial, the trial for Polly Johnson. Bruce was basically a witness for Gary Olson, contradicting another inmate's testimony that Gary Olson had confessed to them that he had killed Polly. In other words, Bruce testified for Gary's defense. He said Gary never made any such confession about killing Polly Johnson. Could Bruce be responsible for Billy's death? He certainly had been a criminal involved with drugs, and if he was as mean as our tipster Mike suggested, maybe he had killed Billy. There was one problem, though. I knew Bruce had been in the state pen, in prison, in other words, before Billy's murder. But was he still in prison at the time of Billy's murder? Obviously, if Bruce killed Billy himself, he could not have done it from inside the prison. Inmate records for North Dakota from 1978 are not available online. To find those records, a person needs to visit a state archive, or call one, and hope for a helping hand.
What's his name? Alright. I just have to do some deep diving here and try and find it. So bear with me 1 second. I can't give you a whole lot of information, but I should be able to tell you when he got out. Whoops, and I grabbed the wrong numbers. Are kind of faded here, so I grabbed the wrong book. Okay, Bruce. Date sentence began, looks like January 30th, 1978. And inmate number was 1, 2, 3. Let's see, looks like he was in here for, what was he in here for? Pro board, carrying a concealed weapon. Violation of probation on charges of assault with a sharp weapon or intent to kill.
With an intent to kill. But could Bruce have killed Billy Wolf? For that to have been possible, he would have had to have been released from prison at the latest by August 18th, 1978.
Looks like he paroled on 9/18/1979.
In other words, if Bruce had anything to do with Billy's murder, he wasn't directly involved because he was in prison when Billy was killed. So let's take a look at another tip I received. Maybe Uncle Frank killed Billy. At least that's what one listener named Robin is wondering. She called our tip line and left the following message.
Hi, I don't know if this is any relevance or if it was checked out at all, but my ex-husband, his uncle, I don't know, the family had talked that he might have been involved in Billy's murder. If you want to give me a call back to get some more information, you can reach me at 701. Hello?
Robin.
Yes, hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Sorry about that. My phone wouldn't let me answer it there for some odd reason. I remember when the news came out about Billy's murder, just because it was such an odd thing to happen in the area. And my husband and I had just gotten home from our honeymoon, and we had talked about it. And as time went on, it started to get rumored that through his family that his uncle, Frank, somehow might have been involved in Billy's murder. At the time, I didn't really think much of it. I just thought maybe it was just some crazy talk or, I don't know. As I got listening to your podcast, I thought about some other things that had been said over the years, and I remember that.
Robin explained to me that she noticed that an associate of hers would always meet up with Uncle Frank.
He would meet Uncle Frank at the High 10 Motel or Hotel out in West Fargo by the fairgrounds. And it was a dumpy, seedy place. And I always thought it was kind of odd that he would meet him there. But I suspect now that he was probably going out and purchasing drugs.
I asked Robin if she knew where this Uncle Frank lived.
I'm not sure where he lived at, but he would come into West Fargo area to visit. And he always stayed out there at the High 10.
And why did she think that Uncle Frank might have had something to do with Billy's murder?
I just remember it would be his half-uncle talking about, him and Paul talking about, their Uncle Frank might have had something to do with it. And I think we all just kind of laughed it away like it was just a rumor. And then we did hear something that this Uncle Frank was supposedly in the Fargo Mafia. And I don't really know if there was a Fargo Mafia in town or not. I guess if you listen to the TV show Fargo, they talk about the Fargo Mafia, and so maybe there was something to that. I did text my ex-husband and ask him if he knew anything, but he never responded to my text. I could always send you his number if you wanted it.
Yeah, this is Paul. I have no recollection or remembrance of anything like that.
So, if I understand you correctly, you have no recollection of your family speculating about Uncle Frank having possibly been involved in a homicide of Billy Wolf in 1978. Is that right?
No, and I've never heard that name before. But my Uncle Frank was, how could I put this? I guess I'd call him more of a character. I mean, he was kind of out there a little bit, and you didn't know whether to believe him or what to believe, because he was a character. That's all I can say.
Well, do you know if he ever did time or anything like that?
Boy, to my recollection, I don't remember anything like that. No.
Okay.
When I was real young, I was probably, I don't know, just starting school, first, second, third grade maybe or whatever. Mm-hmm. I remember my family was living in Wilmer, Minnesota, and all of a sudden I came home from school and the whole garage was full of tires and batteries and car parts. And when my dad come home and found out about it, he called the police right away, and Uncle Frank had brought all this stuff down there and was just put it in the garage. And I don't know if my dad even... Oh, he asked him, I guess, he said, "Can I store some stuff in your garage?" Well, my dad didn't realize what he was talking about until he got home and saw the Advertise that was in there. And so that would have been in the 60s.
Sure.
So, but that's, as far as drugs, I don't know of anything like that.
Anyone else in your family that might be able to help me?
Well, I have my Uncle Rick, which would have been Frank's half-brother.
Okay.
I have his number in my phone here. I could probably give it to you.
Hello, Mr.
Yep.
My name is James Wallner. I'm calling from Fargo. I just got off the phone with Paul. Gave me your number.
Okay.
So I'm working on a story, and I was hoping to ask you some questions about your, I believe, half-brother Frank.
I don't know much about him. I'll tell you what I know, but...
would you mind if I record this for my podcast?
No, excuse me, who are you now?
Yeah.
Explain yourself to me a little bit.
I brought Rick up to speed on who I am and what I'm doing and the story I'm working on.
Yeah, the storyline sounds kind of familiar, and but I don't really know any details. At that time, in '78, I had just gotten out of the military and was rebelling a little bit from responsibility, and I moved out to Colorado, and so I wasn't actually around Fargo at the time. But yeah, a few years later, after August of '78, maybe like I'm guessing maybe like '82 or something.
Okay.
There was some stories. I really don't know that much about my brother Frank, and excuse me because if I'm feeling or sounding kind of confused.
That's all right.
But Frank was actually my half brother. My father had been married to his mother before mine, and his mother passed away. Dad had, I believe, 7 kids total with his first wife, and then when he met my mom, they had 6. Yeah, big family. But we were I want to say a familiar family, but not real close.
Sure.
Okay, and Frank was kind of considered the black sheep of the family. I know that. At the time, I kind of idolized him, but I knew he told a lot of stories about his mafia connections and shit.
Okay.
And I thought a lot of it was just stories, because the guy did a lot of drinking and a lot of drugs back then, and I kind of got the impression that he was just kind of a wannabe tough guy. But as far as anything else about this story that you're working on, I remember hearing rambling on stories from times when I'd been together with Frank and stuff and his friends. But I really don't know much. I mean, it was just speculated. There was no real talk about it or anything.
So you don't
Rumors.
you don't remember Frank ever saying anything about it?
No, sure, I don't.
Long time ago.
Right, it's a long time ago, and Frank passed away.
Okay.
And it's been a long time since we really discussed much about him in the family.
Based on what you knew about him, was he capable of murdering someone?
We sure talked the game, but whether or not, I guess I want to say I was too young and naive back then, and it just sounded like a lot of bullshit talk to me, and
Okay.
I just let it in one ear and out the other, kind of. I'm not saying that you would get much more information, but the person that in our family that was probably the closest to Walter, to Frank, was my older sister Mary. I think 8 years older, 7 or 8 years older than I am. When she rebelled, she ran to Frank. She had a lot more interaction with him and a lot more knowledge of him, but whether or not she's going to share it with you, I don't know.
As of the time of this recording, Rick's sister Mary has not agreed to speak with me.
I kind of, I certainly hope that you run into a dead end with this, but I can't put anything out of the question, I guess.